Why, hello there. It's Chris from Liege of Games. Baby. News! News! It's been a couple weeks. Let's talk about the news. Let's talk about the hotness. The 10 plus 1 on the hotness plus another 5 little smatterings from around the interwebs. And, why do you tune into me as opposed to the half a dozen other ones, including the Board Game Geek news hotness thing? Because I put the banter in bantering? No, that doesn't work. The bant in... I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, you come for the personality, not necessarily the know-it-all. But let's get into it. Board game tournament video tomorrow. I'm going to make it happen. Whether or not I can get it up behind me, I'll have graphics and we'll have head-to-head and we'll have some preliminary analysis and I'll maybe put like a PDF or something linked so you can download the bracket and play at home yourself. And a couple of you kind of like that idea, and I honestly like the idea too of doing the upcoming Kickstarter videos of the campaigns before they launch with predictions, over-unders, if you will. Maybe putting a poll out every week. I don't know. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to mess it up technologically. We're going to have fun with it. Do something different. Why go to Liege? Because he predicts every week that he's going to be wrong on all of these. It's the Stone Cold Liege lock of the century, lock of the week. For all of you 6 people that are going to get that reference out there. So, let's do this. Let's go straight into the hotness, the news, all you need to know. Let's go. We're going way back to the 9th century. That's because Garphill Games has said, and who else would you want to go to the 9th century with anyway? Wayfarers of the South Tigris, a worker placement, workers with different types of worker placement style of game that's going to be coming like 22, 23, and 24, they've said. Now, I don't know a whole lot of other details, maybe crowdfunding, a little bit of everything like you saw with their previous. The joke that was sort of going around was, well, this is Wayfarers of the South now. And it was of the West before, so eventually on your shelves, you're going to have all of the cardinal directions by the time Garphill Games is done with you. So, I don't know, I thought it was slightly humorous. You can laugh along or not. But that's about all that's known. They're putting it out ahead. They're drumming up business already, and we're going to kind of see how it shakes out. I mean, that's the reason it's getting all the clicks, because they've already got something into Board Game Geek. So, what does it look like? How different is it going to be? This one is going to be set place in Iran, so they're going to be different than it was before. It's just different on all levels. But the biggest concern is, how different is it going to be? Is it going to be different enough that both of these can coexist? Different enough that the design element gives you a different sense or a different feel when you're playing it? That's the biggest question on that side of things. Definitely not for me, but they put out really solid games for other people. So it's going to get a lot of attention regardless, especially with the pedigree. So there you go. Next up, we got Horseless Carriage. And you're like, speaking of the 9th century, Chris. No, actually, this is the latest from Splatterspellen. This is their next heavy game, period. Pre-orders just opened up in the past week, and that's why it's getting all the clicks. Your food chain magnets, your Great Zimbabwe's, all of that side of things. That's where they come from, Splatterspawn. And say that 10 times fast. Anyway, but that's why it's getting all of the hype. They have a very loyal fan base. They have a very loyal pedigree in terms of what they put out and who it's for. Again, definitely not my side of things. And I'm okay with that. Mechanisms known yet? Nah, we'll save that for later. Economics? Buying and selling? Definitely, though, as you are designers or artistes of creating the new Horseless Carriage around the turn of the century when they were first coming out. And you're trying to gauge what, how, where, and what features you actually want in it in the first place. Do you want to break on that thing? It's not necessary. But that's the sort of design aspects that they're throwing into a game like this. And so if you're interested in it, you need to head over to their website, because just like a lot of their other games, they go through limited print runs. This is a small, very, very small company that, hand makes most of their games, at least, in terms of batches. This is not a large pre-order system. So given the hype and given the pedigree of the previous games that I've mentioned and not even mentioned at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if nowadays with FOMO running rampant like wildfire that it ends up selling out. So if you want to feed the FOMO, great. If you want to actually learn more details before you pre-order something sight unseen, that's not probably such a bad idea either, but there you go. Check it out. Now we have Skyrim. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the adventure board game. I don't know what to say about this. I've already talked about it once or twice in other videos. It has definitely zigged when a lot of people thought it was going to zag. Now, it's a cooperative game. It's 1 to 4 players. They have been sending out almost daily updates, sometimes even 2 updates a day, saying, hey guys, we're changing stuff. And as someone who was previously interested in this, and someone who has, I dare say it, a lot of experience with crowdfunding, I mean, I am a super backer for a reason, right? This one is going all over the place for me. I like seeing that people are willing to listen to feedback. What worries me, though, is that there is so much feedback. There are so many changes on a daily basis on how the stretch goals are and what's exclusive and what's being added and what's a PDF, but what's going to be in print now. And, you know, what are we adding here? And here are the expansions and here's the gameplay. Here's all the deluxeifications and, oh, here's the social unlocks, but now we're changing. I mean, it worries me because what it tells me also at the same time is the research of what people were expecting, what people want, and what you're delivering or offering. Those things aren't lining up, right? And when they're not lining up, it worries me that it changes what you're going to be putting out in the first place. This cooperative game, everyone was also expecting this to be necessarily a competitive game. It's miniature involved, but it is not miniature based in that sense. And the biggest question that comes with any video game port is, you know, let's take this quote up here. If you've played Skyrim, this is like Skyrim. Well, Skyrim also is like $30 right now. And this is going to cost you somewhere between, you know, $200 and $300 maybe. I mean, I know I do it for the tabletop and not the video side of things, but man, that's a big difference. And there's a lot going on there. And from what people who have been looking at the actual gameplay, because I haven't looked at the gameplay yet, I haven't. It has not terribly appealed to me, and I have been a little bit gun shy to check it out more. But I am not backing right now. But they are going to get a little bit of everything else that's going along with this. But I have been following. Again, new legendary cards. They're giving a whole bunch of different stuff. This base game tier unlocks. This was not there when the launch happened. This is all there. And now you're getting, again, PDF only at this tier. And I think they may have even changed some of the PDF style of stuff. It's just a very interesting change in terms of what we've seen here. Add more with unlocks. So, I mean, you've got unlocks going in expansions. You've got unlocks going in the miniatures. I mean, like, all of their first stretch goals were all just like alternate sculpts in something that the gameplay only core base was not even including. So it's weird. I haven't seen a whole lot of physical prototypes. There's a lot of stuff online, which again is fine. But there's just something to be said that can't be replicated with a prototype versus a computer simulation. So, I mean, here's all the unlocks, and they've changed a whole bunch of stuff around. They've really put them close together now because they were, as you can see up here, they were like 50,000, 100,000 apart. And that tells you something too when stretch goals go that way instead of the other way. I don't know. I mean, what the heck is this thing? Like, this does not look like a dragon to me. Anyway, I know what they're going for, but... And so you're seeing a lot of stuff here that they're giving as PDFs, which, again, PDFs as an introductory skirmish game for, I think, this is all Call to Arms, maybe? Which is, again, weird. Like, you're giving me stuff for a game that I don't have. Or you're trying to get me invested in a game you don't have. I mean, you're even offering it here as a bundle. That's weird. That's weird. So, I don't know. Take for it what you will, but it's definitely divisive on the people that are interested in it versus not interested in it at this point. I mean, it's doing well? Question mark? Zoolander? Because I'm not really sure if this is considered good or not at this point. With this IP and that many people that were following it already to begin with, you know. So, check it out. I'm sure this won't be the last time I talk about it before the end. I will probably do a Should You Back video at some point. But there's 28 days left. And like I said, with all the changes that they've made, I guarantee that there's going to be a ton more in the next 4 weeks. So 4 weeks. Wow. I feel like I've already been talking about this for 2 weeks. So anyway, that is Elder Scrolls Skyrim, the board game. Next up, we got Tapestry, another expansion from Stonemaier Games. This one, Arts and Architecture. The pre-order just went out for it. I've seen a couple early reviewers with videos or thoughts on it from that side of things. So the information is already disseminating out there. And it's one of those games I feel like that is pretty divisive, if you will. Like, people either really like it or really don't like it. It's kind of an odd combination of things because there doesn't seem to be too much of a lukewarm crowd. Like, meh, it's kind of okay. I don't mind it. People are either kind of like, no, this really isn't for me. There's too much randomness. There's too much this. There's too much that. Or, yeah, this is really kind of a cool Civ, not Civ sort of game. It never really appealed to me, especially the pre-order side of things. When the Stonemaier Games crowd really gets hyped up for these new games, like, there are a ton of pre-orders always for these. And it's always interesting to see, like, the early reviews and how many people keep versus how many people sell. But anyway, it's coming out soon. Check it out if you're interested. There you go. Speaking of things coming out soon, Unsettled. This is the latest from Orange Nebula with the multi-planets and going exploring cooperative based card game. It is being delivered to Kickstarter backers right now, and so that's why it's on the Hotness, and early reviews are pretty hype from that side of things. Now, again, test of time, again, larger sample size, we'll see, but it's looking very, very solid. I mean, this is one of those games that I may end up regretting passing. Like, this and Sleeping Gods were the two that I was kind of like, this is up my alley, this is up my interest, but for some reason, especially price point, at that time when they were both going on, I was kind of like, I don't really want to spend that much money on it right now. I just, if I'm okay with missing out and not getting it, I guess I'll deal with it from that side of things. And I know there was a Kickstarter exclusive planet, and there's a whole bunch of expansions where there are going to be more, but I believe they also announced that there's going to be a reprint with more expansions coming sometime in 2022, maybe like early 2022. So they're definitely going to be striking while the iron is hot too, if that's true. Here you can see all the boxes that people are getting. I mean, so it's a ton of content because you're exploring these planets and they're differently each time. And the problem, I think, for me was cooperative. You know me. Great. Yes. Modular setup. Oh, yeah, baby. Variable player powers. Oh, yes. Worker placement. Oh. Okay. So, I mean, that was more of my hesitation from that side of things, because I actually watched some of the playthrough videos from the actual campaign. But all in all, I mean, it looks cool. It looks like one of those games where I wish I had a bunch of friends that bought games, and so I could try it out instead of having to buy all of them myself. And so I supply the games in my group solely. But maybe someday, life goals. Anyway, it looks very interesting. And I guess the question would be, when I look at this, and I'm almost a little bit reassured, and someone out there in the comment section can always correct me, because I don't have the answer to this question, and so I'll put it out to you guys. This looks thematically, incorporatingly, slightly different, obviously, with the worker placement, but it looks similar-ish, not the same, I'm not saying the same, but to ISS Vanguard, right? A lot of the same vibes, a lot of the same elements, done in slightly different ways. And so I guess I'm saying, if you have Unsettled, is that going to overlap too much with ISS Vanguard? Or if you have both of them ordered, are you going to be choosing one or the other? So all in all, it should be interesting. I might try and pick up on the secondary market as I watch more reviews and more info come out, but I could also, again, see myself passing on it just because, people are going to charge an arm and a leg for it. And especially if they do a reprint in early 2022, I'll get it at that price as opposed to, jacked up prices too. So there you go. Too Many Bones. I mean, Too Many Bones is on the Too Many Bones list because too many bones, right? Unbreakable just ended, so everybody, their mother, their cat, their dog, and their third cousin was trying to figure out whether or not to get in on it as the last expansion, bringing to the Too Many Bones universe. I did actually pledge. I kept my pledge for the Unbreakable. I may end up picking a couple extra gear locks up or another small expansion in the pledge manager, but since I traded for the base game about 2 weeks before the campaign ended, I decided I'm going to go for it and just see what happens. So I kept it, but that's why it's on the Hotness, because everyone was trying to get a copy. Everyone was trying to see if it was right for them, because if you know anything about Chip Theory games, their prices are always better during the campaigns, period. Every single campaign they have done, they're always priced better. And so if you're going to get in, that is the time to get in, because even if you sell slightly below retail price, then you're still going to be at worst breaking even, but usually you're even making a few dollars. And I hate doing it that way, and I don't do it that way now, hardly at all. And this was not my reason for doing it. It's because I thought Unbreakable looked more interesting to me than the other expansions that are already out there. And so that's why I went for it, especially with those gear locks and the time manipulator and the other two. So that's why it's on the Hotness. It's going to stay on the Hotness. The only question is just when am I going to get this? And it's probably going to be like, you know, the end of 2022. And I'm okay with that because I have to play the base game still and I have to get a bunch of other stuff out there. And so it's definitely a lifestyle game. But I am glad I am not one of those people who's getting like $1,100 worth or even like $600 worth, because I don't think any game is necessarily that worth it for me, my own self. Anyway, that is too many bones. That's why it's on the Hotness. Next up, Weather Machine, Lacerda. It's launching tomorrow. You better have your eyes on it if you're not already having your eyes on it as the next big heavy game. Probably the biggest. You know, it's going to go right up against Darwin's Journey as the one that's most funded in terms of the Euro game placement. Now, if you missed the other video, I will say Voidfall is excluded from the worker placement Euro side of things because, you know, the committee said so, and the committee being me. So deal with it. But I mean, those are the big two of this past, 2021. I don't see anything else anywhere close coming in the next month and a half. And so those are going to be the two. And you can tell me in the comment section which ones do you think are going to raise more. Darwin's Journey, who's already funded in January, over $1 million, or is Weather Machine going to beat it from that side of things? It's not probably going to beat the Voidfall, but it's going to be somewhere in between. And I would say, my bet is over on Darwin's Journey. I think Weather Machine is actually going to raise more. It looks more beautiful. It looks fantastic. It looks way too heavy for me. It looks gears within gears within gears within mechanisms. You have these robots that you need to fill, but you need to have cooperative because there are a certain number of robots to fill each of these actions, so that if they're not filled, you can't actually do the action. And so you don't have enough robots to necessarily fill it yourself. So you're going to have to cooperate with other people, and you're going to have to use it to get more resources, and the resources that you're going to need to build your Weather Machine, to control the weather, to prevent the other Weather Machine from destroying the world. It looks deep. And I'm completely okay with passing on this, as beautiful as this is, because this would look very nice collecting dust with all of my other Arcadia Quest stuff that hasn't gotten played yet as well. So I'm completely okay with passing on it. You guys in the comment section who love this type of game can tell me how much you're looking forward to it as well. But again, it's also, this is what Darwin's Journey didn't have going against it. It's also going up against Hegemony. Hegemony, am I pronouncing that right? Because it's not hedge, Hedge, hegemony, as I was pronouncing it before. Hegemony? I'm guaranteed to pronounce something wrong every single video. You can bank on it. And the other thing that's coming up, I'll mispronounce too, but I'm going to work around that, if you'll see where I'm going with that in a minute. As well as Resurgence. And I think there's going to be a heavy overlap between those three games in terms of the people that are liking those games. And so I could see people having to feel like they have to choose. And so then I could think that could affect the total amount raised. Although, nowadays you can pledge $1 or $5 or whatever it is in some of these and get it just in the price, and you're splitting the price between maybe this month and next month, or this month and January, or this month and like March. And so I could also see a lot of people doing that. So that could also though affect the funds. So there you go, Weather Machine, check it out. Wasn't kidding. Boon Lake from Alexander Pfister. I'm gonna mispronounce his last name no matter what, so I went that route instead. Ha! Anyway, this is Boon Lake. Not much is still known about it. There was a playthrough, I believe, and some copies available at Essen. So some of that is starting to leak out now. Basically, you're just establishing this city next to this lake and bidding to build and do Civ-esque things. I guess what's unique about this game is they say the action selection is unique. You have these action strips that you're going to be choosing from. And I'm not sure if it's these little things up in this corner here, or if it's a little bit of something else. But the action selection system is thus that you choose half of it and you do it, and one half is particularly stronger in certain areas and even allows you to choose when the scoring is going to occur. But the other half, everyone else gets to simultaneously do as their actions on your turn. And so it's a back and forth battle from that side of things, and you score, I guess, 4 times until the end. And like you would see on the board, it's really a civilization construction. You're upgrading buildings, you're, carving out niches in terms of resources and how you want your settlement to be. And so, I mean, it's definitely way too large and heavy for me for that side of things, but it looks like it is something different, which again is a reason to consider getting it in the first place, right? Otherwise, a lot of these Euro games are similar in that sense. And so that gives it a little bit difference. And so it's on pre-order right now. if you really want to check it out, you can definitely do so as the reviews and the comments start leaking out, I'd say probably in the next month or two. So there you go. Next up, Anno 1800. I think pizza is finally getting delivered over in the States, and I think this is why it's actually on the Hotness right now. It's from Cosmos. It is been around, and I think it was actually an import as well. City building, industry. I mean, it's an 1800 game. It is resource management, building. You are taking ships, traversing old land to the new land with new islands, and at first the citizens are happy with just the basics, and then they want the extra goodies, the luxuries. Does it look like there's a lot going on? Because there's a lot going on. Again, speaking of games that I am never going to play. This is right near the top of the list. It is actually available stateside now, and so I think a lot of people are getting it that weren't able to get it before when it was only available from overseas. So I think that's why it's getting more of the clicks and the hotness right now. It's also by Martin Wallace, who, especially from the heavier game side of things, has a well-established pedigree. So if you're looking at it, go check it out. Some early playthroughs and some early videos are out there so you can get a little bit more information and see whether or not it's right for you. Next up, one of the few games I actually am looking at, seriously contemplating ordering as a pre-order that came out of Essen. And this is, you can't read the bottom part, but this is Ark Nova. This is being imported by Capstone Games as one of the distributors, and it is on pre-order from them as well as most of the major online game stores as well right now. And so I don't know. People say it's a little bit different, a little bit heavier like Terraforming Mars, and I'm not a huge Terraforming Mars person, but this theme has much more appeal to me, especially with the animals, especially with making sense of it in my mind. And again, it's probably going to sit on my shelf collecting dust with Dominant Species Marine, which is behind me. But this is also something I could see as my plunge into the heavier side of things, because also the reviews or the early impressions on it from people who have picked it up or imported it or played it over at Essen are very, very positive. Again, I am not going to import it. You can import it right now from a couple overseas websites, but it's going to cost you like $80 to $90 ish, maybe a little bit more, when the pre-order right now is sitting at like 52 on most websites, 55-ish. So I can't justify, especially as a game that is a little bit heavier than my usual ilk, pre-ordering it for, or getting it a couple months earlier for double the price. My Dutchness, my frugality will not allow that, no matter how much I want to be on the hotness myself. Nope, can't do it. No thanks. But it looks cool. I am really intrigued by it, and there's a lot going on in this game too, and it just makes me wonder again if I'm going to try and bite off more than I can chew. But from that side of things, I'm tempted to. So it's going to make, I think, a lot more waves as it gets more of a wider retail distribution. So don't be surprised if you're seeing a lot more of this when the retail gets finally released. Now, the pre-order, especially on a couple of the websites I looked at, is like the end of March, though. So you're realistically talking almost like 5 months. That's a long time. That's a long time to remain relevant on the board game scene of things. But if it really doesn't get a full surge now, it could definitely benefit from that when it actually hits on the retail side of things later. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot more of it in the near future. But I would love to try this one out to see how overwhelmed I am. There you go. Last up on the hotness, Dune, a game of conquest and diplomacy. In case there aren't enough Dune games that have come out in the last 6 months, Gale Force 9 has also put out their iteration of this, and people are calling it a little bit lighter than the other more traditional alliance-based asymmetric faction Dune games that have come out recently. Now, interestingly enough, this one appears to actually be using art from the movie, which is always a little bit of a controversial subject in how you do that, especially with like Game of Thrones and some of those where it wasn't very well received at times. 3 to 5 rounds, depending on where the victory conditions are, most control, most strongholds, or no one controls enough by the end of round 5, and then it's most spice. So you're taking the 4 asymmetric factions that come with the base game, and you're going head to head in terms of supremacy, resource management, and some take that too. So check it out if you're interested. Like I said, it appears, as early reviews, early comments have put it, a little bit lighter than a couple of the other reimagined Dunes in the last year or so. So if you're looking for something along those lines, you like the Dune theme, but the other ones are a little too heavy, or you're a little concerned about how easy they're going to be to get to the table, this one apparently is a little bit of a notch down, so it might be a little bit more friendly from that side of things. Okay, so now we have the 5 additional things beyond the hotness. A little little bit of a quick look at what else is sort of making a little bit of rumblings or is a little bit of interest from that side of things. First up is Talisman. Talisman is getting another implementation. This time it's Harry Potter. Instead, give me a Harry Potter role-playing game. Give me a Harry Potter true dungeon crawl. Someone do that. Simon, 50th campaign. Hello, let's do it for once. That would be amazing. That would be freaking fantastic. Holy hyperspace kraken. Instead, we're getting a Talisman re-implementation where you could either choose to be a Death Eater or an Order of the Phoenix, trying to obtain one of the Deathly Hallows to defeat the Dark Lord in the end. Now, again, is it probably going to be different than any other Talisman out there with slightly different theme? Probably not, but it's going to appeal to more of you Potterheads from that side of things. So I expect to get a relatively decent reception. It's coming out from the OP. Next up, we have something from Space Base. Again, something close to my heart. Space Base is a game that's probably never going to leave my collection. It's one of my wife's favorite games. It's probably one of the few that she can remember how to play offhand without having to be reminded, as well as one that she can remember the name of, because she doesn't like trying to remember half that stuff. So it's all up to me. And so the fact that she can do both of those things in this game, it makes it a great fit for us, because I also always lose and she always wins. And so again, it's one of her favorite games. So there is going to be another story expansion called The Mysteries of Terra Proxima, and sometime in 2022. Again, story-driven expansion. If you're not familiar with the emergence of Shy Pluto, sort of story-driven campaign-esque game that added each other element, that added a few extra elements to Space Base to really spice it up, to give it just a little bit more without making it too complicated or too thinky. Well, this appears to be doing a lot of the same. New ships, new scenarios, new content. So for us, I mean, again, the question is, can I play this? Is it going to be too overwhelming? As they're combining the new plutonium with other space junk and ferrying across the galaxy, it may be too much. I don't know. It depends on how much it notches it up versus goes sideways with it. And can you compatibility wise do it with one and not the other? Is it going to be a head-to-head comparison of one being better than the other? They talk about it possibly having more iterations in terms of this type of expansion in the future too. So all in all, I'm going to keep my eyes very, very peeled on this. And so definitely, if you're a fan too, check it out. Next up, sometime in 2022, a reprint of Dead Men Tell No Tales. This is coming from Renegade Game Studios. Originally, the street date was supposed to be around November. Now it actually has it, per the forums, in maybe the middle of February. And so this pirate-themed cooperative game where you are building your board as you go, trying to collect treasure and loot, especially with the heavy use of dice, it has to be high on people's wish lists. And the pre-orders are already available on many of the major online game stores. So if you have any interest in this and you don't want to pay collector's price at this point, you can already start to go ahead and pre-order it from that side of things. The question is just going to be, again, with a reprint like this, or is it really a reprint? Is it a second edition? What's going to be new? What's going to be different? How is it going to change things or not? So that leads me in a segue right into the next one, because we have King of Tokyo, king of all kings in my dice chucking kingdom. How many times can I say different key king words in this rambling part of the video? But King of Tokyo is getting a new version 2.0. And again, the question is going to be, what is it going to bring? Again, I have Dark. Dark is essentially a 2.0 version with a little bit of power-up expansion included. How good is it going to be? Is it going to be superfluous in terms of me making one versus the other conversation? You know, if someone asked me right now, King of Tokyo Dark versus King of Tokyo with the power-up expansion, I would probably lean just slightly to Dark, because it's probably going to cost you a little bit less. But I really do like the power-up expansion that gives you a lot of asymmetry between the characters, even though all the characters are definitely not balanced equally, because some of those powers stink, and some of those powers are much better than others. And it's a little bit easier to get the powers in Dark too. So that'd be my biggest concern. There's tons and tons, like 1,000, I swear, promo characters, which again, if you're going to put promo characters out, like at least give them special abilities to go along with them instead of just like a different standee. That's always been my biggest gripe. Like I would totally have gone after a bunch more of these extra ones, but they're all like just different cardboard standees, and you were always just like copying and pasting the powers with whatever else was out there. So if you're going to put out, I mean, this is my one thing for ELO, right? I mean, like ELO is ever going to look at me or listen to me or hear me or anything. Like give those other characters something additionally besides a different standee. Anyway, end rant. So who knows when that's going to be out, but that is something to consider. Now, again, speaking on the reprint, reedition, remastering, redoing of things, we have Risk Shadow Forces, which is a spiritual successor, apparently, to Risk Legacy, if you're familiar with that. If that is some of, as people have said, their own gateway into the heavier side of things in the first place. Now, the big thing that they say on the page, I mean, 4 secret envelopes, 1 secret container, but you have skirmish level covert missions that are going to be going on that will affect the overall bigger picture on the game board as well. And I mean, it's legacy, just like with original Risk Legacy. I mean, not spoiling anything, but you're going to write on the board. You're going to change stuff. Stuff is going to be different from game to game, and it's going to have consequences. Do you like that? Do you not like that? Can you play Risk after playing other games? What are they going to do to make Risk more appealing and to bring it more 20 years into the future? Although the game is really 30 years in the future because it's actually playing in 2050. So anyway, but you know what I'm saying, metaphorically speaking. And so that's going to be the question is, will it still be appealing from the legacy side of things with an updated way to play it as opposed to Risk from 30 years ago? So that is the final news point today. There you go. That's the roundup. That is the hotness. That's the news. That's a little bit of everything all thrown into one. Hopefully it's useful. Hopefully it's entertaining. Hopefully I got a couple silent nods. Yeah, Chris, you were trying to be funny, but you weren't. You guys can at least give me that. That's all I got. So we'll see what comes out the rest of the week. I have a bunch of stuff that has to get played. I have a bunch of reviews that have to come out. I need to sit down and hack out a bunch of reviews so that I could just check them off my list because I got way too much that's building up. And I have a couple previews as well of stuff that is upcoming on Kickstarter crowdfunding for this month. And so I need to get the other reviews done. I mean, they're done, but they're not filmed. And, you know, that whole process with my rambling always ends up being longer or taking longer than you'd think. And then we have got to start the bracket challenge, and we got to do the over under the upcoming, and we got to do the round. There's plenty of stuff out there. So it's a matter of just ordering, seeing what comes up, and going from there. So as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for making it to this part of the video. Yeah, that's how my night's going, because I film these at night most of the time. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Hope your day goes well, and I'll see you around. Stay classy. No boxes. Okay, we're good. Du Civisk.